It's interesting. I wouldn't think they'd be out doing recreation with that big a tournament in front of them.
That's, that's what I mean. But yeah, it's a long season. If you're not ready now, you're never ready. So I think, get a little away time from it isn't bad either.
Hey, Tony, I don't have Josh's technological background here to shift these screens back and forth. So who's going to do that, Josh or yourself?
Shift the screens?
I usually share the screen when it's needed.
Okay, all right, good. Are we all set?
We are, yes, we're live streaming now.
All right, welcome everybody on June the 15th, Wednesday, for the Board of Selectmen meeting with myself as chairperson, just to announce the changes. Mark Cullinan as vice chairman and Josh Antrim as the recording secretary. Going to do a little switch in the process tonight. I'm going to ask if Josh would continue to do the opening comments and the announcements, and that Mark do the new business. So if that's okay with you guys, we can begin with opening comments. Are there any out there?
Sure, I can do that. Happy to do that. Oftentimes we'll read the written ones and then ask around the room if anybody else has any other comments. So I'll just proceed as we typically do. So opening comments, 2022 resident parking stickers are available for purchase at nahant.org. Stickers are $10 each. All outstanding bills must be paid to the town and the census must be completed. Compost area is open on Wednesdays and Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. A 2022 resident sticker is required. Visit the Public Works Department page at nahant.org for a list of accepted materials. Recycling for metal, white goods, TVs, computers, etc. is the last Saturday of each month from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. noon behind the DPW garage at Flash Road. A 2022 resident sticker is required. Certain fees may apply. Visit the Public Works Department page at nahant.org for accepted material. Nahant Town Hall is seeking a college-aged student for a paid part-time internship. Send a cover letter and resume to ktaylor@nahant.org by June 30th, 2022. Visit nahant.org for a full job description. The farmers market is returning. The markets will be on the following Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. July 16th, August 20th, it's September 17th at the Flash Road Park. Vendors need to fill out application and submit with a fee to ktaylor@nahant.org. Visit the farmers market page at nahant.org for more information and application. Volunteers are also needed. So that's exciting news. That was a big hit, the one that was held last fall, and it's nice to see that we'll have 3 over the course of the summer. Town Hall will be closed on Monday, June 20th, 2022, in observance of the Juneteenth holiday. Any other opening comments, Jean or Mark?
No, none.
I just want to say, Josh, that I think this is our first meeting since the passing of Marty Lucantonio. And again, on behalf of the town and the Board of Selectmen, I want to extend condolences to the Lucantonio family. And Nahant will certainly not be the same without his presence. He was certainly an icon for the town and will be sorely missed. So I just wanted to mention that. So
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah,
Thanks for thinking of that. That's just so true. Great guy.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. And on a lighter note, I noticed the Nahant resident was featured in the Lynn item today. Mr. Cole Hammernick. Would you like to give him any shout out?
It's my nephew. I can't say it's genetic. So he was awarded a couple pretty good awards this past week. One was the MIAA Student Athlete of the Year for the state of Massachusetts, and the other was the Harry Aganis Athlete of the Year. So anyone who knows Cole and his family, his mother Renee, my niece, and his father Scott, they're great parents and they raised a great kid. And he's off to study. He does take after me a little, I guess. He's off to Colorado College of Mines to study civil engineering. So I'm sure he'll do great at that.
That's awesome. That's great.
That's great. Congratulations to him. It's great to see Nahant being represented by our youth in that fashion. You know, it's not just sports, it's also academics. So great job by him.
It's a big award.
I had two other things, if I could, Mr. Chairman. Tomorrow night at 6 o'clock at the town hall is the 6th grade graduation for the Johnson Elementary School. So congratulations to the graduating class. And on Friday at noon, I'll post this online, but we will have a ribbon cutting event at Flash Road Park for the new basketball and tennis courts.
It's exciting.
Yes, very exciting. They look great.
I'm sorry, Tony, I just lost you there for that whole conversation, but we can pick up on it later.
Yep. I just said 6 o'clock tomorrow night, Johnson Elementary School, 6th grade graduation at the town hall. And I said on Friday, we're going to have at 12 o'clock at Flash Road, we're going to have a ribbon cutting for the Flash Road basketball and tennis courts.
Well, I'll be there, I believe.
Yes.
Okay, Mark,
Sure. New business. First item on our new business is a vote to approve some bonds, and I guess I'll make that motion. It's a lengthy legal one, so bear with me. Says actually, Josh, you should probably make this because it's the clerk.
Oops, I pressed the wrong button. Yeah. Right. Oh, it's the long one.
Yeah.
So this is a very long motion. Right. I, the clerk of the Board of Selectmen of the town of Nahant, Massachusetts, certify that at a meeting of the board held June 15th, 2022, of which meeting all members of the board were dutifully notified and at which a quorum was present, the following votes were unanimously passed, all of which appear on the official record of the board in my custody. Voted. This doesn't sound like a motion, by the way. Am I doing this appropriately?
I believe so.
Yeah, okay. I will.
I don't have it in front of me, Josh, so I can't read it.
Voted to approve the sale of $1,982,955, 3% Series A general obligation bond anticipation notes, the Series A notes of the town dated June 24th, 2022, and payable June 23rd, 2023 to BNY Mellon Capital Markets LLC at par and accrued interest, if any, plus a premium of $15,832.71. Further voted to approve the sale of $3,092,148, 3% Series B general obligation bond anticipation notes, the Series B notes, and together with the Series A notes, the notes of the town dated July 7th, 2022, payable July 7th, 2023, to Oppenheimer and Company, Inc. at par and accrued interest, if any, plus a premium of $27,149.06. Further voted that in connection with the marketing and sale of the notes, the preparation and distribution of a notice of sale and preliminary official statement dated June 3rd, 2022, an official statement dated June 7th, 2022, each in such form as may be adopted by the town treasurer, be and hereby are ratified, confirmed, approved, and adopted. Further voted that the town treasurer and the Board of Selectmen be and hereby are authorized to execute and deliver significant events disclosure undertakings in compliance with SEC Rule 15C2-12 in forms as may be approved by bond counsel to the town, which respective undertakings shall be incorporated by reference in the applicable notes for the benefit of the holders of such notes from time to time. Further voted that we authorize and direct the town treasurer to establish post-issuance federal tax compliance procedures and continuing disclosure procedures in such forms as the town treasurer and bond counsel deem sufficient, or if such procedures are currently in place, to review and update said procedures in order to monitor and maintain the tax exempt status of the notes and to comply with relevant securities laws. Further voted that any certificates or documents related to the notes, collectively the documents, may be executed in several counterparts, each of which shall be regarded as an original, and all of which shall constitute one and the same document. Delivery of an executed counterpart of a signature page to a document by electronic mail in a PDF file or by other electronic transmission shall be as effective as delivery of a manually executed counterpart signature page to such document. And electronic signatures on any of the documents shall be deemed original signatures for the purposes of the documents and all matters related to thereto, having the same legal effect as original signatures. Further voted that each member of the Board of Selectmen, the town clerk, and the town treasurer be and hereby are authorized to take any and all such actions and execute and deliver such certificates, receipts, and other documents as may be determined by them or any of them to be necessary or convenient to carry into effect the provisions of the foregoing votes. I further certify that the votes were taken at a meeting open to the public, and that no vote was taken by secret ballot, that a notice stating the place, date, time, and agenda for the meeting, which the agenda included the adoption of the above votes, was filed with the town clerk, and a copy thereof posted in a manner conspicuously visible to the public at all hours in or on the municipal building that the office of the town clerk is located, or if applicable, in accordance with an alternative method of notice prescribed or approved by the Attorney General as set forth in 940 CMR 29.03 2B, at least 48 hours, not including Saturdays, Sundays, and legal holidays prior to the time of the meeting, and remains so posted at the time of the meeting that no deliberations or decisions in connection with the sale of the notes were taken in an executive session, all in accordance with General Law, Chapter 30A, subsections 18-25 as amended, dated June 15th, 2022, and to be signed by the clerk of the Board of Selectmen.
Seconded.
Motion's made and seconded. Discussion.
Yeah, Josh, I didn't quite get that. Could you read that again, please?
Yeah, I think I might have mispronounced one of the words.
Allison, our finance director, is on the call if you have any questions about that vote.
I have no questions. Thanks, Allison, for putting this together. I know how much work it is.
Yeah, so this one was a lot of work this time around because it includes all the new borrowings for everything that was approved at last year's town meeting. So the town treasurer and I had to put together, and the town clerk put together a lot of documentation for bond counsel for this one.
It shows. Yeah.
Okay, motion was made and seconded. Roll call vote.
Josh Antrim, aye.
Mark Cullen, aye.
Gene Canty, aye.
Thanks, Allison.
Thank you, Allison.
Thank you. Good seeing you.
Okay. Let's see, I'll take over from here. I move, we have an appointment here. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the appointment of Michael Schultz as a Nahant Reserve Police Officer.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion.
Looks like Tim Furlong's on the phone. I don't know, Tim, if you wanted to add anything?
Trying.
All right.
I don't really have much to add other than Mike Schultz is a 20-year veteran of the Essex County Sheriff's Department. He's a captain up there. He also contributes to the town as an assistant harbor master. So he's trained as a reserve officer as of now. So to me, this is an easy no-brainer.
Yeah.
I agree, Chief. Good pick, and I'm sure Mike will do a great job. So, is he able to take orders from his brother?
We'll find.
Able or willing?
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it'd be great to have Michael as a reserve
Yeah.
officer for sure.
Thank you.
I don't know Michael personally, but I hear a lot of great things about him.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Member of the 1973 Nahant Champion Giants Little League team. Trivia. Second base.
Okay,
no, that's great.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. We had a roll call vote.
Josh Antrim, aye.
Mark Cullen, aye.
Gene Canty, aye.
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the Board of Selectmen meeting minutes for March 16th, 2022, April 6th, 2022, and April 20th, 2022.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Josh Antrim, aye.
Mark Cullen, aye.
Gene Canty, aye.
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the event request from the Nahant Public Library for the Through Me to You puppetry show on July 12th, 2022 at the Town Hall, starting at 10 a.m.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
Just to,
What day is the 12th? I hope it's a Tuesday. So I can bring all my kids up. Whatever, I'll find out.
it is a Tuesday.
Oh, perfect. I had nothing to do with that.
All right. Well, you should also know that the show will be held inside in the case of inclement weather. Otherwise, it will be at the Flash Road Playground.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Roll call vote.
Josh Antrim, aye.
Mark Cullen, aye.
Gene Canty, aye. Ongoing business. We've got several reasons to continue with ongoing business. The first being 9 Little Nahant Road. And I spoke with Tony today about this, and he's going to give us an update along with Dan, if the two of you would, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We haven't really had provided a public update on this for quite some time. I think prior to town meeting. So I apologize to the residents that have been, wondering what's going on. We were approached by the selling party, which I think Dan is the appropriate, the estate, appropriate way to refer to them.
Yep.
Who had received a decent offer for the property. And so they wanted to, they wanted, HUD and the town of Nahant to engage in a conversation and negotiate on the issue of the town being owed deferred taxes versus HUD being owed their reverse mortgage amount. The offer provided to the selling party is not enough to repay both the town and HUD completely. So, we had a few conversations back and forth with HUD. That's what the Board of Selectmen and I and Dan were meeting about in executive session as we were negotiating with HUD some sort of dollar amount to avoid having to go to litigation to argue about how much money the town should receive from the sale versus how much money HUD should receive from the sale. I think that we were able to, there was a lot of back and forth. It wasn't a very easy negotiation, but ultimately, I think that the town presented a very fair, thought out, equitable split of the purchase price. And we were able to, stand on that ground and negotiate a very good number for the town. A number that is significantly higher than the principal amount of deferred taxes owed to the town. So not only if the current deal goes through, not only will the town recoup the principal amount of deferred taxes, but we will also recoup a significant portion of the penalties, fees, and interest that was layered on top. After coming to that agreement and presenting it to the selling and buyers, the selling party, the estate, knowing that there was a leftover amount owed to the town and a leftover amount owed to HUD, requested that both HUD and the town waive those remaining amounts in order for them to sign the contract of this purchase and sale. And we, the town, don't have the authority to do that unless the Department of Revenue provides us that authority. So we explained that to the buyer and seller, that that's the process we would have to take, that we didn't have a big issue with waiving the rest of the amount, but that we needed DOR's okay. And that process, could take time, as we heard from the DOR. And it's not a definite. Otherwise, if we didn't apply, or if we apply and DOR doesn't approve it, then the town is actually held responsible financially for the remaining amount. So that could, that's a risky position for the town that we were not willing to agree without DOR's okay. So we've submitted, both the buyer and the seller understood. They're both okay with however long it might take. And we've submitted the application to the DOR. And we've reached out a couple times. They were looking for some supplemental information. They've gotten that, and we're still waiting on a response. So that application has been with DOR for a few weeks, I would say. I don't know.
3 weeks.
3 weeks. And they originally had said about a month, I think. So,
Yeah.
We're hoping that we hear back, and we're hoping it's an approval, sometime in the next week or two.
Tony, I've been asked by a couple of people whether or not this is under agreement. And I'm asking Dan, would this be considered to be under agreement?
No, there's just an offer out there. And the offer is pending based on the response from DOR. So it's not really under contract yet. I'm not quite sure, I think you're looking at a website maybe. It also said something about 1.7 million, and that's also inaccurate. So I wouldn't go by what the website says, or even what any sort of placard says at the property. Tony described it perfectly. We did everything we could as quickly as we could. I want to emphasize that, as quickly as we could. So the wait now is on DOR, and we're waiting just like everyone else is.
Okay,
Sorry, Gene.
it shows in MLS as it being held up for a contingency. Is that contingency what we're talking about right now?
Gene, I don't know the MLS vernacular. All I can say is Tony described it perfectly, and to me, that would be considered a contingency. I'm not quite sure how the realtors use that term.
Yeah, no, I don't either.
But it would make sense if that would sort of fall within that umbrella. Now,
I'd
that's
like
not to
to add
say.
one more piece too. I was asked by a resident if we could include other considerations in the negotiated deal. For instance, regarding the future use of the property. And I did submit that request to Dan, and unfortunately that's not an allowable introduction to the negotiated amount on the past due or deferred taxes. Dan, do you?
Oh, absolutely. Part of this deal is contingent, as I mentioned, to use Gene's word, upon the DOR approving the abatement. And they do that when the tax is uncollectible or the situation is so unusual that it merits a second look. And that's exactly what this is. So we couldn't add into that application. First of all, we have no control of what the seller does. Okay, let me just say that. We can't tell the seller what to do. They gave us the benefit of a buyer. So that's a very good thing they did for the whole town, because without that, we were left with the auction through HUD, which likely would have gotten nothing more than what they were owed, which leave the town out, not penniless, but not nearly as much as the town stands to get if this deal goes through. So to put an application for an abatement out there saying that, well, the sale is contingent upon a buyer not creating, a 40B or a Airbnb or something like that, that would not bode well with the DOR in my expectation. And that would lead to them saying, no, that's not really why the abatement process exists. So try again. But that being said, we're not even close to that because we have no control of what the buyer does. I'm sorry, the seller, what the seller does.
And I'm being asked in the chat, what is the buyer's planned use? We don't know. We don't have, any information about that. And that's, I think, why the request came in from the resident about potentially including language in the abatement request, or as a part of that negotiation. But we can't include it as a part of that, as Dan just mentioned. So we do not know, what the future use is at this time.
And I'm going to point out, Tony, no matter what the buyer says, they're not bound to it. They can say, we're going to refurbish it back into a single family home. They can say whatever they want right now. At the end of the day, once they buy it, they're not bound one way or the other outside of our zoning bylaws.
Correct.
Exactly.
I want to take a minute to publicly acknowledge the really outstanding job that Attorney Script and Tony, town administrator, did on behalf of the taxpayers of Nahant in reaching a negotiated solution here. The initial offer from HUD was $10,000, and through hard work and perseverance, and with the support of the Board of Selectmen, that not only we recover all our principal, but very nearly all the interest and penalties involved in this. So really well done job, Attorney Script and town administrator, on behalf of taxpayers of Nahant.
A lot of people
For
involved.
that.
A lot of people.
Thank you.
No, it wasn't easy.
Thanks for your support.
A lot of back and forth, but hopefully the taxpayers appreciate all the hard work.
I'd like to add too that I think our internal discussions amongst all of us, particularly Tony and Dan, was tantamount in us getting the return that we expect to get on this sale.
But just to make it clear, we're waiting on DOR, and if DOR says no, that sort of throws a wrench in the work. So the deal's not done by any means, but we're certainly way down the path. That's for sure.
Thank you.
Tony, I've asked this question, and we can probably discuss it at a later time off screen, but as you said, DOR, if DOR doesn't give us a waiver for the full amount owed, then the town would be on the hook for the difference between what we got and what we were owed. I'm not quite sure what that is.
Well, I think that if DOR were to deny it and the sale were to, and let's say the seller still, wants to go through with it, I think our next action would be to go after the estate for the remaining amount. And if that were to be proven, to be, we weren't able to recoup any funds after trying to go after the estate, I think we could probably submit another application. And then DOR, we've exhausted every option at that point. And then if DOR were to deny it again, yes, according to the folks we spoke to at DOR, it would be the town actually appropriating free cash to itself.
Yes, yeah, I just don't get that accounting. It's like, so we pay ourselves through free cash or available funds, and then that money goes into the general fund, and then the town can reappropriate that any way it wants.
Well, I think or it's reduced, or our total free cash amount that gets approved is just reduced by that amount before.
Yeah, but it doesn't eliminate it. It's still there. It's still there. I mean, it's sort of like a shell game. It really is. And I don't know, maybe we can talk about it later. I know that Allison is looking into that. I asked her that question. I don't know how you pay yourself, and then
It's really strange. I agree.
Very strange. Okay, discussion for another day. Let's see what DOR says.
Yeah.
Any more?
I know our assessor Sheila Hamilton reached out to DOR either yesterday or today. So we're keeping the pressure on them, asking for updates. Don't have one yet.
Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll move on to short-term rental discussion. And this is an area where we, the selectmen, the Board of Selectmen, are just getting involved, not involved, but just taking notice that we're aware of the situation and we're putting our support behind the subcommittee that's been working on this for probably the past 5 or 6 weeks. And Tony, I'm going to let you talk a little bit about it, but these guys are doing, I've sat in on 4 or 5 of the meetings. They're doing an outstanding job. And the membership on that is based upon some of the departments or the chairmanships of their committees and several citizens. They're now at a stage where they just brought it in front of the public, not a public hearing, but a meeting with the public in attendance. And it's now probably going to continue on in that format as an open meeting at town hall. So Tony, I'll let you pick up from there.
Right, so they, we could meet in person too. You have the choice to meet in person or meet by Zoom virtually, or meet in like a hybrid fashion. And the committee, I think, was having a difficult time of, they really wanted to be looking at the same document in the same room. And so I think they, a couple members of the committee prefer that in-person format. They may do more of a hybrid option, but that, with them in person and others being able to tune in remotely or in person. So they're still considering that option. But they've been meeting, their meetings have been public all along. It was just by Zoom. That committee was in 2 years ago at town meeting, when the town, when the Board of Selectmen and I were talking about, formulating the warrant for that town meeting. And we wanted to add the local hotels tax option. It was a conversation about, needing rules and regulation or bylaws about short-term rentals. And so we included a second article that created this committee, and their mission is to do just that, to develop draft bylaws and present them at a future town meeting. And it's in accordance with chapter, Dan, jump in, chapter
64G, section 14.
Chapter 64G, section 14 of the Mass General Laws of the Acts of 2018. Or actually, no, that the Acts of 2018 amended chapter 64G, section 14.
Significant. Yeah, overhauled it actually.
Yeah. So their mission is to present draft bylaws to a future town meeting where, any registered voter has the ability to come to town meeting and vote in favor or against. But in the meantime, the meetings are public, open to the public, and they have an email address. It's strc@nahant.org, which stands for Short-Term Rental Committee. So you can either attend a meeting, you can email the committee if you have any input as to what you'd like to see included in the draft bylaw. And again, their email is strc@nahant.org.
I don't know, Tony, if I picked up on that, but are they going to continue the meetings, open meetings at the town hall?
I think, yes, I think that they prefer to be meeting in person. But that, like I said, they didn't really understand the hybrid option yet. So that they might move their meetings downstairs to the conference room where people are welcome to attend in person or call in through Zoom, as long as it's posted that way as a hybrid meeting. So I think that the members of the committee prefer to be in person. I don't think they have a preference on whether participation from the public is in person or via Zoom. So hybrid might be the way for them to go. But yeah, I think they're going to try to meet in person, and they meet every other Tuesday.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm wondering if it would be wise for us to, because we have a number of hot topics on our ongoing business here, to ask if the public has any comments as we go through them, rather than waiting to the end. So just a suggestion that if anybody has any questions about the short-term rental discussion, maybe we could open it up now. Then we can go to the next and then to the
I
final.
noticed Karen had raised her hand right as we switched to short-term rentals as well.
Yeah,
So
why don't we go, Mr. Chairman, I would suggest we go back and do the 9 Little Nahant Road. If anybody has any comments, we can address it now, and then as we go through each of these items, we open it up at the end to public comment.
Good idea. Do we have any comments out there?
all right, so let's go back. Let's go back to 9 Little Nahant Road. If you have a comment or question related to 9 Little Nahant Road, please unmute, announce your name and address, and your comment or question.
Hi, this is Karen Rignanti, 14 Howe Road, Nahant, Mass. Thank you very much, Mark and Tony, for taking my question. So I feel like I'm a hostage in my house. I know you guys are doing the very best you can, and I understand it's complicated. And Dan, I so appreciate what you said, that, you know, of course, a buyer can buy it and change their mind and do anything once they own the property, as long as they get approval to do whatever they want. So I understand that. It would be very helpful, though. Very, very helpful. You know, as Tony opened up with, it's been 11 weeks since we've had an update, and a lot of us are really just not happy. You know, we're like, our lives are just so you guys know, I know you're doing the best. I really appreciate it, but our lives are being held up because we don't know, we don't know what's going to happen, and we don't know what's going on. So we very much I appreciate tonight you coming forth and saying what you've said. And it would be very helpful, even though we know that it could change, if we had some idea of what the current prospective buyer is intending to do with the property. And maybe legally that's not possible for us to know, but if we could know that, first of all, that would be very, very helpful. Second, so again, you guys don't live here, so you don't know what it's like to be living with grass that is almost as high. Sorry, I didn't turn my video on. I meant to. Living with grass almost as high as the fence. In the 67 years we've lived here, it has never been like this. We've never had these kind of conditions. And as I mentioned many months ago, I think the last meeting, it is not only a health hazard, it is a huge health hazard. And with the amount of Lyme that is in town, it's a huge Lyme health hazard for people, both for animals and for humans. And anyone that questions whether or not this is a health hazard, they should come and speak directly to me. And I can tell you what it's like to be in bed for 5 years from Lyme disease and not being able to work and having it for 10 years. I'm now Lyme free. And if I get Lyme again, guys, I don't even know where to begin. So it's a huge health hazard. The other health hazard is that the coyotes, they hide in the grass. And it just has been fortunate that I have been on the porch a couple times and have seen the coyotes in order to alert our neighbors who have dogs, and elderly people who are walking on canes or who have just had surgery and are barely able to walk. There's a coyote hiding in the grass. So it's not just the Lyme. It's not just, there's animals in there. The third thing is it is a fire hazard. And, you know, God forbid there's a fire. I mean, I wouldn't even know where to go, guys, with if anything should happen as a result of this grass. But I'm begging you, I don't know what I have to do. I don't know who I have to talk to, but I'm begging you that within days, somehow or other, however we figure out how to cut this grass. And I understand this is complicated. This may go on for more months, but we can't live like this, guys. And it's not fair to us.
Karen, have you reached out to the owner?
I have reached out to Nick, yes, and Nick has said to me that he can't do anything unless something, a hold harmless waiver has to be signed.
That's not true. It's
And-
still his property. It still is the state's property. That's not true.
Well, it's not what he's saying to me, and he's telling me that if he's been advised that if he does anything on the property without getting these waivers signed, that he could be sued. And so because I even said to him, could you just give me permission? I'm willing to cut the grass if somebody would give me permission, just on my side. And, and, it seems like no matter how I ask the question, it's like, if Dave was here, if it hadn't been condemned, right? If Dave was here, Dave would have cut the grass by now. We've never had this problem. So I beg you, honestly, I beg you.
Have you reached out to Dave and asked him to come cut the grass?
Well, Dave, yes, I have. And Dave can't because he does not want to get in trouble because he's been told he can't come on the property. So he doesn't live here anymore, and it's been condemned. And supposedly because it has been condemned, whoever's making up these laws, and I was actually told to call you, Dan, next, which was going to be my next call tomorrow, is that, I just don't understand why somebody can't come by in the middle of all of this complexity and just please come and cut the grass. I think
So,
it's
Karen, I don't know
request.
if, Karen, I don't know if we have the, like legal authority to force them to cut the grass, but I think we could certainly, reach out to Nick or his attorney and ask that they cut the grass.
Or allow them to cut the grass, or allow somebody to cut the grass.
I don't think it's for us to allow, is what I'm saying, but I think that we can make the ask on your behalf.
Well, it needs to happen, and it really needs to happen, because I have to tell you, there's a lot of frailty. I don't want to name names, but it's amazing somebody hasn't gotten hurt. Let's just put it that way. And I also have a generator. You guys are aware, probably, I have a generator. It runs once a month, once a week, does its maintenance, and the grass is high right on the other side of the fence. And I'm like, it's all to code, it's all that, but it's like, there shouldn't be that grass on the other side. And it concerns me, so it's like, in the midst of all of this complexity that's being handled, this little simple thing of cutting the grass should somehow or other should be solved. That's all I'm saying. So
I
like
understand.
now,
I understand, and we hear you.
thank
Like
you.
I said, I think we can pass along the message, and maybe that puts a little extra pressure on them. The town doesn't have any control over the property. We're not prohibiting anybody from doing what you're asking. According to Dan, what Nick is saying doesn't seem to be true. So, maybe the extra touch from the town will put some pressure on them to get it done.
Or if there is a way, Tony, because I really don't care how it gets done. As I said, I would actually cut it. I wouldn't cut it personally, but find somebody that could cut it. But if there's even a way that since you're dealing with all these attorneys, if there's a way through Nick, that Nick's attorney could just even give permission to the DPW to come over and cut it, or someone else in the town, that's authorized, like, one of the contractors here that does landscaping, something.
I know it's this is like an odd situation because of the deferred taxes, because of the condemnation, because of the town at one point being potentially interested in pursuing the property. But this is no different from any other neighbor that you have. The town does not have any control over the property, right? So it's no different than any other private property in town that the town can't just go and, even with permission, use town resources to cut private property grass. So we obviously hear you. We understand the frustration that it's bringing to you, and we will pass on the message and try to put some pressure on them to take care of it. It's their responsibility. And if there's anything else further that gives us some type of legal authority to apply pressure or do something differently, I'm sure Dan will let me know, and we'll see, and we'll go down that road. But Dan, am I wrong on what I'm saying, or am I?
No, I think you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I don't know where Nick gets the idea that he needs a release to go on his own property. He's certainly been on there after the condemnation on his own many times.
I also wanted to mention, I keep forgetting this. The lights on the third floor have been on for 2 weeks. And that also is a it's a fire hazard, because God only knows what the electrical's like. But somehow or other, those lights should be turned off too.
Hey, Dan,
Yes.
I would expect that these approvals would have to be in writing
For what approvals?
to go on the property and cut the grass.
I don't know what Nick's talking about. He doesn't need any approval. I don't understand where he's coming from. I think he's just making an excuse, to be honest with you. He doesn't need an approval to go in the building. He doesn't need any approval to cut the grass. Like Tony said, we have no control of the property. The extent of our control is exhausted in that we had the ability to condemn it because it was a death trap. So we've done that. So we've done our due diligence. That does not absolve the homeowner from his responsibility of maintaining the property to the benefit of his neighbors.
But Dan, is there some way in which that their lawyer could be interpreting that because it's condemned, they can't go on?
The attorney is Darcy McDonald. I think she's out of Danvers. I don't know what she's telling her client. She didn't have to tell me that, but as Tony mentioned, I can reach out to Darcy and express your concerns and see what she has to say.
I would so appreciate it. And yeah, as I say, however it happens, or again, if somebody would even just say, yeah, Karen, you can hire somebody to cut it. I would gladly pay for it. At this point,
I'll pass that along to Darcy. Maybe that's
Yep. Thank you. That's what I really had to say. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Karen, I see another hand raised, Susan. Not sure if it's related to 911 Nahant Road or if it's related to short-term rentals.
Yes, hi, this is Susan Casivio at 65 Mayolis Road. Thank you for taking my comment. I just wanted to quickly mention that we have our next door neighbor has a short-term rental, non-owner occupied short-term rental. So I'm pretty interested in the topic. I'm currently in bed, which is why my camera's not on, because I'm recovering from COVID. So I would really like to see the meetings continue in the hybrid mode. And I just wanted to throw that out there. I think that would be very helpful, because I think there's a lot of COVID going around right now. And I think there's a lot of people that would be interested in attending that may not attend if it's in person because of that.
Tony,
Okay, thank you. I wrote it down. Thank you,
Thank you.
Susan. Good luck
Thank you
on
so
your
much.
recovery.
Thank you.
Hey, Tony, not to break the train of thought here, but we didn't cover COVID at the beginning. Is there any statistics on that, this meeting?
No, I can, I probably have some I can pull up, but what I'll do is I'll present those during the town administrator report.
Okay, great, thanks.
I see Mark with his hand up.
Hi, it's actually not Mark, it's his wife Terry Clark. I don't know how to change his name on that. But I have a question about the short-term rentals. The first question is are they legal or illegal in Nahant?
Dan, do you want to?
Yeah,
that
that's a good question, and the answer is not clear. We're still looking into that, and it's not clear because the short-term rentals are a relatively new animal. And when our bylaws were drafted with anything even resembling something like a short-term rental, that's not what they had in mind. So we're still looking into that. I can tell you that there's a lot of discretion that's left to the ZBA to interpret our bylaws, and that's what the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court has held. So it's not crystal clear yet. So we're still looking into it. But at the end of the day, I think it comes down to a ZBA interpretation of our bylaws.
Okay, so because we don't know whether it's legal or not, are we erring on the side of they are legal because we have so many of them in town? I know at the last meeting we had at Town Hall about the short-term rental committee, Tony, you said that the bylaws were silent on it. So having said that, it seems to me like the town is taking a position that because they're silent, we are going to let them have them. Is that what you guys have decided?
I guess not quite. More so the town's position is that we are, putting a committee in place to develop rules and regulations that'll be presented as a bylaw for the town to vote on at a future date. So
I understand that, but right now they're you don't know if they're legal or not. So I think the question that should be proposed to the town is, do you want them or not? Not like through guidelines for it. It should be, do you want short-term rentals in town or do you not want short-term rentals in town?
If I could interrupt for just a second, I think at the beginning of this conversation, I suggested that we, as a select board and as citizens, need to let this follow through with the subcommittee. And they may be able to interpret and answer a lot of the questions that you and other citizens are going to ask. But I think we need to give them that opportunity.
I understand that, but right now I live on a street that has 50% of the houses on my street are Airbnbs and they're not owner occupied. The people don't even live in town. So, and the third house on my street, there's only 4. The third house on my street is also starting to become an Airbnb. So having said that, I would like to know right now or as soon as possible whether they're legal or not, because I don't want to wait until the next town meeting, which is next year. I don't think you're going to have a special town meeting on this. I may be wrong, but so I have to wait a year living with transient people coming and going on my street, besides having coyotes too here. I mean, like, I live in a residential zone. It's an R2 bordering on conservation land. So having said that, why are they allowed to do it if you don't even know whether they're legal or not? Why don't we just shut them down and then look at the situation instead of opening them up and then looking at the situation?
Well, we're still looking into the state law and our local zoning laws and bylaws to determine whether we would have solid ground to, in your request, say that they aren't allowed. So we don't know if we have solid ground to enforce it in that manner at this
I think
time.
Linfield did, didn't they?
We're, first of all, we're not Linfield. Our bylaws are very different from theirs. And as I said, I understand that this is a frustrating topic for you, and you're not alone. So I don't want to get into like an argument about other towns, and there's a lot of confusion about what happened in Linfield. What I can say is that, the state law clearly provides municipalities the authority to regulate Airbnbs. And that's what the committee's mission is to do. In the meantime, we are looking at our local zoning to understand where they fit or do not fit. But we're not going to, make an enforcement decision until we feel solid about what that decision is.
I can clarify something.
Aren't you enforcing them to be able to do it right now? I don't understand why you can't just put a moratorium and have no more, even if you keep the ones that are in place right now, don't have any more. Some people have 8 or 9 STRs already right now. I mean, it's a commercial business. It's definitely a commercial business.
Our bylaws, our zoning laws and our general bylaws are dictated by you, the people, at town meeting. So we have to follow those. And, it's possible that our local zoning and bylaws can be interpreted that they are allowed. So we're not going to make a decision. I mean, the very short answer is we're not going to make a decision on enforcement until we feel we have a solid ground to stand on. Even though there are many people who are against and there are people who are for, and we're hearing from both. I can tell you that I think myself and the Board of Selectmen agree that an unregulated form of this shouldn't continue, and that there's, that if this is allowed by state law and if it is permitted by local zoning, that certain regulations need to be put in place to make sure that it doesn't get out of hand, so to speak.
So is this going to be voted on at the next town meeting, or are we going to have a special town meeting on this?
It could be either or. It kind of depends on how quickly the committee is able to develop their regs, their drafts.
But the committee is developing regs to decide whether or not how to oversee them. But have you guys decided whether or not you're going to have a vote on whether or not we want them or don't want them?
I can chime in on that, Tony.
Yeah, please do.
No, Tony used a particular word that's very, very important, and that's regulate. The Home Rule Amendment passed in 1966 to our state constitution gave cities and towns much power to rule themselves, but not to the extent it contradicts a statute. And although our bylaws are different from Linfield's and everyone else, most other ones, we still fall under the same general laws. Section 14 of Chapter 64G gives us power to regulate. It does not give us power to prohibit. So we don't have the power to ban STRs altogether, but we can regulate them. And you brought up Linfield, and Linfield did not ban short-term rentals. They just made them very hard to get. In fact, I found no municipality in the Commonwealth that has banned altogether STRs.
So we could, in fact, make them too hard to get.
We just put regulations on them, sure, yeah. Hard to get, I mean, that's my sort of turn of phrase, but we could institute a
But so
licensing.
they're not considered commercial.
No, they're not considered a hotel, a motel, anything like that. They're apples and oranges.
If I could take a second and try to answer your question from the beginning, it would simply be, and this is my personal opinion, is that if it's not permitted in the zoning table of use, it's not allowed. If it's not allowed, it needs to be enforced. To be enforced requires a formal complaint.
So
and if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, the SJC actually did decide on that. And the language you're referring to, I think, is section 4.03, something along those lines, maybe 413, about a use that's not explicitly allowed is then prohibited. Well, the Supreme District Court, looking at short-term rentals, said that doesn't apply to short-term rentals because it's still close enough to what I call a long-term rental to be sort of within the distance of allowable. So the SJC did say that that is not an appropriate reason to prohibit STRs, because after all, where's the difference between a short-term rental and a long-term rental? They're still rentals, right? They're no more commercial than long-term versus short-term. So there is that sort of proximity of what is allowable very clearly.
Thank you. I'm just going by what I've heard over the last 5 or 6 weeks. And that generally is what comes up. If it's not permitted, it's not allowed.
Well,
Thank you.
nowhere in your,
Thank you for correcting it.
let me address that, Ching. Nowhere in our bylaws does it say you can rent your property. Nowhere does it say you can rent an apartment. It doesn't say that, but that still is a basic use of property. And if we try to prohibit all rentals, that would not pass muster with the AG's office, because then you're really trying to define civil relationships between people in terms of contracts and whatnot. So the short-term rental is not a large leap, at least to some degree, from a long-term rental. So that's why they're still within the same proximity. That's why the SJC said that's not a reason to prohibit, or not prohibit, to find that STRs are illegal uses currently.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, it's a very good question, because this is a very gray area. So it's a lot of great questions out there. So we're doing our best to come through. And as Tony mentioned, the cachet of general laws that applies to this is very, very young. There's not many cases determining the contours of this chapter. So we're all sort of in a learning process, and we'll get through it, no doubt. So the short-term rental advisory committee would be very interested in hearing everyone's input, including yours, Ms. Clark.
I have one last question. Does anybody know whether the police and the fire can handle any of all these short-term rentals?
Would that not be based upon how many there are?
And that's my next question. Does anybody know how many there really are? Does the town hall know how many there are?
They have to
The
register.
A lot of these questions should be addressed to the short-term rental committee. It was brought up at the last meeting, and they said that I think they said that there's 19 registered with the state, and that a registration with the state is required to be featured on these online platforms.
Correct.
So has anybody spoken to the chiefs and find out whether or not our police can handle it, or our fire department can handle these situations where we are unique to other cities and towns? We have a small police force and we have a small fire department. I'm just curious, is there like an algorithm to figure out how many policemen you need on the road for so many citizens in town? Because with the Airbnbs, I noticed that like they can register 6 people, 8 people. We've had on my street, I've had 9 people in one house and an RV and tents. So having said that, there's more people going to be floating around town using our beaches that don't have lifeguards on it. And the police department, are they equipped to handle this influx of people?
Yeah, that's a question for Chief Furlong, Ms. Clark. I don't think we can possibly answer. And that's a
Well, I
question.
thought the selectmen could ask, right?
I mean, the chiefs are being consulted by the committee as they go through the process of developing regulations. The police department is not staffed based on how many people are sleeping overnight in the community. In the summertime, the amount of people that are in Nahant not staying here increases significantly. So, to answer your question exactly. I don't think that that would have a factor in how we staff our police department. But there are things that the chiefs are being consulted with, related to, contact information. And that would be part of that, smoke detectors being up to code, public safety issues, and all of that would be part of a future regulated system and a local licensing requirement or part of an application. So certainly they are being consulted as part of that process by the subcommittee.
Okay, the only reason why I asked, I'm sorry, but the only reason why I asked about the extra people is because they're in vacation mode when they're here. They're not in like regular people mode where they're going to work or whatever. They're on vacation here. I mean, I see it. I live on Motel Street down here. So there's a difference in, yeah.
If I compare it what Tony is saying, we really need to let the short-term committee take and do their job as they've been charged to do. They'll bring up through attendance or otherwise, hybrid, however you want to do it. It would seem to me that they would be the ones, at least at this point, to make determinations as to how this should go. Because eventually you're probably going to have the planning board involved, the zoning board involved, selectmen involved. But right now, I think it's very important we let them do what they've been charged to do.
Okay, and they'll be getting back to the town residents sooner or in a few months or next town meeting? When would that be?
They're meeting every other Tuesday, so.
I know.
I would just follow along and, they don't have we're certainly hopeful that at the latest, it would be featured at the next annual town meeting.
Which is next May?
Which is in May.
Okay. So in the meantime, we have to.
Could be sooner.
Okay. Because I've gone to the planning board meeting and I've gone to the short-term rental meetings, but it just seems like some of my questions are not answered. The planning board told me to file a thing for enforcement of the residential code, but I couldn't find any of the paperwork, so I guess I just wait till next May. Is that's really what you're saying, right?
Hopefully it'll be sooner than that.
Hopefully
Great.
sooner.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think
I'd like to just add that, I agree, we got to work through the short-term rental committee, but I'd encourage you to keep going. I think to those meetings. I think you've raised a lot of good questions, and
I have lots
that should
more
be
too.
part of their process, I hope.
Mhm. I guess you can hear my frustration because I have to live with it until next May. And, it doesn't seem fair. I bought in a residential area and I did not buy in a commercial zone. And I know you're saying they're not commercial, but sure appears like it, especially when you see 9 people going into a house and, let's party. So anyway, I guess I'll wait till May.
Okay, thank you. Becky, your hand is raised.
Thanks, Tony. As a lawyer, I just wanted to respond myself to some of the comments of the last speaker. I live next to an Airbnb. I also own a short-term rental that is not currently being used as a short-term rental. I own a property on Little Nahant Road in addition to my residential address at Castle. The Little Nahant Road is currently being rented to one of the families who had a fire recently. We're very happy to serve in that capacity to help a local family and assist them through this time where they're having difficulty. But some of the things that have been raised tonight, I am concerned about. Number one, I am concerned about Mr. Canty and other folks making representations about the law that are not accurate. So I don't think it's appropriate for folks to be misstating the law or misrepresenting the law. So I'd really urge caution. I thought Mr. Scripps' comments tonight were perfectly appropriate. But I am worried that there are some overreaching comments that are happening on Facebook and in other places. The moral of the story is that short-term rentals are not a commercial use, they're a residential use. The power to regulate how somebody uses their private property is a very difficult area to wade into. And so with regard to the last speaker's comments, and the idea that she could prohibit somebody from using a property that is properly owned and being operated in a residential use in a residential community is concerning. And I think it bears noting that in the event that there's an attempt to regulate or prohibit, not the word regulate, but prohibit perfectly appropriate uses that have been recognized by the state, will result in legal action. And that's a step that the town does not want to step forward into, I'm sure. There are plenty of people in town who have had positive experiences. And I am concerned that that the comments by the Soul family on Furbush that repeatedly go to the meetings and raise concerns and talk about pedophiles, which I think was used at the
Becky, can I interrupt?
Yeah,
you?
absolutely.
I'm sorry to cut you off. Could you, for the record, state your full name and address?
Sure. Rebecca Dalby, residential address is 124 Castle, and the STR is 21 Little Nahant Road. The house that we purchased as a STR was in great disrepair. Everything needed to be updated and replaced. And we just started renting to a local family on Wharf who had a fire. That family had nowhere else to go, and so approached the short-term rental operators. And eventually their name was passed on to me because I had the space. Short-term rentals have beneficial results for the town. And that's just the point that I wanted to make. I don't mean to drag this out, but I do think there's another side to the story.
Thank you, Becky. Again, as the chairman had mentioned earlier, the comments that you just had and the comments that the resident had from Furbush Road, and prior to that, are all comments that really should be presented to the subcommittee. And tonight's, I think that the Board of Selectmen's intent tonight was to help explain, the process that the short-term rental committee is going through and why we, pursued that through a town meeting vote. So appreciate the comments from all. But really, those are things that should be submitted to the short-term rental committee. Again, strc@nahant.org.
Thanks so much, Tony. I appreciate it and appreciate everybody's hard work on the committee and here.
Thank you.
I had a general question. Brennan Bronick Olmsted, 2 Summer Street. Until regulations or this committee's finish, if the town were to take action, would it open itself to excessive legal fees?
Potentially. I would answer that. I mean, that's a pretty general question, Brendan. I think obviously it depends on the action that we take and the ground that we sit on. So that's why, I was saying earlier is, we fully recognize the passion on both sides of this issue, but the town, is always in any situation going to be careful to make sure that we're standing on strong, sound legal ground before we enforce something in that capacity.
Thank you.
Any more questions on either of those subjects? 9 Little Nahant Road are short-term rentals.
Doesn't look
Tony?
like it. Nothing in the chat, and nobody else is unmuting, so I think we can move to the next one.
All right, let's move on to the Tudor Beach ramp discussion. I'll leave that with you.
Okay, the Tudor Beach ramp discussion. This is the ramp on Willow Road at the end of Tudor Beach. We've have this on the agenda tonight. There's been, a lot of public discussion and questions to the town as to what is happening with the ramp and what's the ownership right related to the ramp. Because after this past winter, there were granite blocks placed on the ramp and rope and sign saying that the ramp was closed, and that was done by the abutter to the ramp. So there was a lot of questions from residents as to, why is that happening? How can that resident do that? Doesn't the town own the ramp? And we've been working on this for quite some time now, doing our research, and again, as I've just mentioned under the last topic, making sure that we are on sound legal ground in any action that we take. So we wanted to bring that up tonight so that the residents of Nahant and of the surrounding area are aware of the town's position on this issue. So Dan, with that, I'll hand it off to you.
Okay. Let's put ownership aside. It doesn't really matter who owns the ramp, because our research has reached back to the 2 previous owners of all these addresses run together for a while, 163 Willow, dating back to the mid-70s. And her name was Ms. Gimple, and she now lives in Virginia. So I spoke to her, and she made it very clear that, again, ownership not being an issue, she never thought she owned it. And she never stopped anyone from using it, whether it be the town or, Joe resident or Jane resident. I spoke to the owner after that, Miss Morris, who lives now up in New Newburyport. She said the same thing. She never even considered owning it, never even stopped anyone from using it. And those 2 ownerships lasted almost 20 years, maybe even a little bit more. So our position, I should also say, we've also gone back to the 3 previous DPW directors and asked them if they had received any sort of permission from that particular landowner on that property. And each one to the man said, no, we never got any sort of special permission. We never thought we needed it. We always thought the town had control over the ramp. So that being said, and there's some other legal aspects of it, but just to make it simple, we believe that not only does the town have what they call a prescriptive easement over that ramp, so does the citizens. So the current owner, and we made this very clear in a letter to him just this past week, has no ability to block what we call block the easement, which is to say put bolts up there, put a gate up there, put a rope up there. So we said to him, this is our position, and if you don't believe it, feel free to challenge us. But if you do put some barriers up there, we're going to take them down. And if you think we're wrong, we'll challenge us in land court, and we'll see how it goes. That being said, I do believe the primary concern of that homeowner is simply the safety of the public, and we can share that concern. We were all concerned about that because it does get slippery with the stuff from the ocean, and it can cause a bit of a hazard. So we are going to take measures in terms of the town, putting some signage, ensuring that it's maintained and things of that nature. So it's our position that not only does the town have an easement over that ramp, so does the public, and the homeowner has no right to block it.
And even further, I'll say that, the practice of blocking the ramp and or any beach access point in the winter months is something that the town Public Works Department does and considers depending on the vulnerability of that area to flooding. So it's possible that, we may continue that practice or do it differently in the future. But I think the point that, you're making, Dan, is that would be a town, it's not a decision of the abutting property to do so.
Right, that's true. We should note that we did give that homeowner the ability to come before you today. He opted not to for now, but he did say that he might want to come next month.
Okay. Any discussion, further discussion? Hearing none, we'll move on to ongoing business D, Coyote discussion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, yes, coyotes have been a topic that has been discussed on social media, through email, through phone calls. It's been a hot topic, so to speak. We have been working with Mass Wildlife. We work with Mass Wildlife on any coyote issue, to be honest, but especially recently, in the last month, we've had 2 incidents of domestic pets being bit by a coyote while on leash, which is very new. We've never had a report of an on-leash incident. We certainly have had other reports of interactions or off-leash interactions with domestic animals, but on-leash brings it to another level. So we've certainly ramped that conversation up with Mass Wildlife. Our message to the residents, which is the message that we are receiving from the state, is that 99% of this solution is with the individual and the behavior of the individual resident. So making sure that coyotes don't view humans as a source of food, whether that be because you have trash that isn't covered, bird feeders, if you're leaving, food for your pets out on a front or back porch, any type of food source in and around your house will attract a wild animal. And so that's one huge piece to deterring coyotes. Another is making sure that you do have your dogs or animals on leash when outside of the home. Certainly dusk and dawn are even more, I guess, risky times. I think based on what Mass Wildlife says, is that coyotes tend to be looking for food in the morning and at dusk and dawn. So certainly at those times, especially, and when you're walking near undeveloped like wildlife sanctuaries or forestry areas, or along the golf, in Nahant, it's really like the golf course, the bird sanctuary, lowlands area. There are many others as well, but especially in those areas, you want to make sure that you are that you have your animal on a leash, your pet. And they also express how you should interact with a coyote if it were to interact with you, and you should be hazing the animal. So loud sounds, making yourself as big as possible, whether that if you have a coat on or something of that nature, making sure you're being aggressive towards the coyote so that they learn that interactions with humans are not safe. And this is whether no matter any other solution that the town could potentially consider related to the population of coyotes, the behavior of individual residents, and especially those of pet owners, is 99% of the solution. And 99% of what Mass Wildlife is saying has to be occurring. So a lot of that information we're putting on our website. We've offered whistles, free whistles to residents in the past. We're looking to invest in those or louder sound, pocket-sized sound tools to help with hazing. A pocket-sized air horn, for instance, is a good tool. And all those things are available online to the individual residents. So you can go on and you can purchase those things yourself and use those. But we are, as the town, we are, looking to purchase some more of those and make them available to residents as well. So that's 99% of it. What's the other 1%? We've spoke with, I have a FAQ that actually Josh found, Selectman Antrim found from another community that we're reviewing and pulling and adopting that to add it to our website. We have a extensive memo from Mass Wildlife about the legal impediments and the different ways to address coyotes and how they can be positive or negative. I'm going to be putting that on our website as well. So I think, we've pushed education for a while now, and I know this dates back, as I mentioned in the article in the item the other day, I know this dates back till 2010 and maybe earlier. So we have never, luckily, knock on wood, we've never had, until just recently, any sort of issue with an on-leash domestic animal, and certainly no issue with a human being. So when you're speaking with Mass Wildlife, every time we have a report of an attack on a pet, they ask us what are the details of that encounter. They don't view an off-leash pet being attacked by a coyote as a public safety issue. They view that as normal coyote behavior. And so until recently, with these last two incidents, we've somewhat entered into a different threshold of a situation where the resident themselves have a couple extra options to consider. But even those options of hunting, trapping, and relocation are very, very limited, based on for legal reasons and beyond for rate of success. So ways to get, that 1%, ways to get rid of, the ways to lower a population or ways to get rid of coyotes. First is hunting. Hunting is heavily regulated by the state. There is a hunting season for coyotes. However, you cannot discharge a firearm within 500 feet of a structure, of a home, or 150 feet of a roadway. So under state law, Nahant, there really isn't any place that is under state law legally able to discharge a firearm. Further, the town has a local bylaw that doesn't allow discharging of weapons anywhere anyways. So for that probably, 10 square feet in the middle of the golf course or on top of East Point, that might be outside of the 500-foot state law, you still can't discharge a firearm because of our local bylaw. So hunting is not an option. Trapping coyotes the traps that were in the past effective to trapping coyotes were foothold traps, snares, and cable restraints, all of which were made illegal by a ballot referendum vote in 1996. So they are no longer legal to be used in the state. And the trapping season, which again happens for the month of November, only once a year. The only thing allowed really is large box traps, which are about the size of a kitchen table, difficult to get, and you have to bait them. So the success rate, even during the legal hunt trapping season, is very low. And there's, as Mass Wildlife states, there is a lot of negative effects of obviously baiting a trap and leaving it out there. So trapping, while probably is the best option, may not be super successful. Further, if you trap a coyote, you cannot relocate that coyote. The state does not allow you to take a problem animal and relocate it to another community. So that coyote would be killed in that scenario. But according to Mass Wildlife, because coyotes are very territorial, mate for life, they will populate an area and regulate their own population according to the food supply. So if you were able to get a trap, put it in a location where it's a good place to bait, and you were to catch a coyote and kill it, you're making room for another coyote to fill that void, and unlikely to capture all the coyotes in the hunt. So trapping, while it may be an option, may not be a successful option and could result in actually negative impacts. There's a lot more information here that I already discussed about individual behavior that I'm going to add to our website as well. And I think I'm going to stop there. I see a lot of comments in the chat and a few hands being raised. So unless, before I turn that over, does the Board of Selectmen have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, this has been a really frustrating problem for the Board of Selectmen and Town Administrator. Our hands are tied legally by the state laws that Tony just outlawed. We certainly can't condone breaking any laws, and the limited legal options have practical limitations, again, as Tony kind of outlined. I would like to get that information, the FAQs, up on our website as soon as possible, Tony, as well as I thought the letter from, I think it was Dave Waddle, the wildlife expert, was very thorough, very informative, and really kind of brings to light why this problem is so difficult. It's frustrating for me personally, to have citizens saying, please solve this problem, and not being able to satisfy that request. So, particularly disheartening, when a citizen has lost a pet or something like that. I don't know. For me personally, it's tough to not be able to provide a solution to a problem. So it's a tough one. It really is. And it's not just Nahant, it's all over the state. You talked about the trapping. Back a year ago, almost a year ago, I talked to the most local PAC, I forget what that stands for, but the folks that are authorized by the state. There's only a limited number of animal control officers that are permitted animal control officer, I think is what it stands for. And he was not very encouraging about the trapping prospects. Coyotes are smart, as you pointed out, Tony. You have to bait the trap. So what that means is you have to bait the trap repeatedly without setting the trap. So the coyotes have to get used to going in there, getting free food over a long period of time till you then set the trap and actually catch one. But it's not easy from what this officer told me. Again, that letter from the wildlife expert said, it gets regulated by the food supply. The population gets regulated by the food supply. So like you said, we got to harass them at every turn, like without exception, so that when they see a human with a pet on the leash, they're too afraid to come close. It's not the answer that people want to hear, but it's the best answer we have at the moment. We'll continue to look at other options and possibilities of changing the law, but it is a tough one. It really is. That's all I had.
I just follow up, Josh, that, over the past several weeks, talking to town council and Tony and officials at the state and our state representatives, that it appears to me now that Nahant is doing everything it can do within the limits of the law. I mean, if there's something else that would help us, I'd be open to it. I do have a question, though, about, I know it's illegal to discharge a firearm, but other sort of weapons, if you will. Maybe I think the chief is on. Dan, you may know also. I mean, I literally encountered a couple who were walking a small dog on a leash the other day, and he had an old broken axe handle in his hand. And I jokingly said, "Is that for the coyotes?" He said, "Yes, it is." And I completely understood. I mean, if a coyote is attacking my dog, I would use whatever I could to get him off it. Are there any other sort of things? For example, I'm an avid hiker. I go hiking quite a bit in bear country. I have bear spray. Can I use bear spray? Are there sort of air guns that shoot pellets, non-lethal pellets? Are they allowed? So some of these things that people have asked me, so I pass them along to you, town council, maybe the police chief.
I don't know. Everything you said sounds fine to me based on what I looked into. The pellet gun thing might be an issue. I'm not quite sure if that's legally considered a firearm. That's a question I have to turn to Chief Rowland for or look into myself.
No, the pellet gun is not considered a firearm. However, I think that would upset the animal more and make it more aggressive.
Bear spray?
Bear spray, pepper spray, that's legal. It's actually a preferred method of defending yourself from a coyote.
The problem with that is you have a dog and you spray the dog and the coyote. You spray your dog with it.
Yeah, so they do have different types of pepper spray. For example, I carry a gel form when I walk my dogs. And there's no permit anymore. All you need is you have to be 21 and of good moral character in order to purchase it. So the gel form, especially in Nahant, is more likely to get through the wind that is all over the island. So, and it's a stream. It's not a spray. So if you're aiming it at the coyote, as long as it's not like a hurricane, you're gonna hit the coyote.
Hey, Tony, in our discussion today on this matter, you talked about ordering some air horns for distribution.
Right. So I'm looking into that again. They're available on Amazon. So they're about, the pocket size ones can range from anywhere from $5 to $15. So, I would tell residents, don't wait for the town. Where, you can go ahead and order one tonight. But we are trying to find a supplier that could satisfy a larger size order than just, online, the max size order that I could find was, 10 or 12 items per order. So I'm actively searching for a wholesaler to seek out like a 100 or 200 of them. But like I said, those are available online. Folks can, whistles, air horns. I think that the pellet gun idea, personally concerns me a little bit. Some of these, some of those types of guns, A, look very similar to a legitimate firearm. B, some of them can travel pretty far. And C, I want to make sure that those who are using them responsibly. So I don't want to create another problem, but again, hazing the animal as much as possible to get them to understand that, humans are not a source of food, is going to help teach them and hopefully learn that there's not enough food supply within town that they leave on their own, as they did, between the years of like 2010 and 2019.
Yeah, I would add, Tony, that this is the time of year, you didn't mention it, in the spring when they have their pups, the new litter. So they're really out looking for food now because they have more mouths to feed. So this is the time of year, from everything I've read, that you're going to see the population increase.
Right. According to Mass Wildlife, that population will regulate itself. If there's not enough food supply to feed all the mouths in the den, they will leave and find somewhere else to be. Coyotes mate for life. They find a partner and they mate for life. So they don't, they create a home, and that's how they're very territorial. So if there isn't a mate and there isn't food, they're going to travel until they find one or both of those things. All right, so there's a few hands raised. Again, if you can state your name and address, and then your comment and question, that'd be helpful. So I'll go with Pamela Duncan. It says on the screen. You can unmute yourself.
Hi, I'm Noelle and Tom Costin's, Mousepany Costin and Tom Costin's daughter. I'm here taking care of them. My name is Pam Duncan, 54 Mayolis Road, Nahant. It's the witch house. You all know it. We have tons of coyotes in the yard. I talked to the animal control officer on Sunday. We woke up to 8 coyotes in the backyard. Tom told me to call the police. He told me to call the animal control officer. I spoke to Scott Greaves. He told me they did not respond to noise. They do not howl due to noise. They do not eat rabbits. Yes, they do. I wailed the horn like he told me to the other day. I think I disturbed the entire street. I've been in touch with all of my neighbors. And they howled when I wailed that thing. And there are at least 9 in the yard. They are running through the gazebo. They are under the gazebo. We were sitting out in the yard. They're running all over the place. I'm afraid for my parents because they're elderly. They're on canes and walkers. They're 95 and 84. And I mean, my mother wanted me to close the upstairs windows the other night because she was afraid the coyotes were going to come in. And I said, they don't fly. However, we do keep our downstairs windows open. We don't have central air. And 2 mornings ago at 6 a.m., they're howling outside my bedroom window. I mean, something needs to happen. There are way too many coyotes in our yards. I mean, they run back and forth from the bishops in my yard. I know my neighbor across the street who's on tonight saw them walking down the street with rabbits in their mouths, which I was told they're too fast for them to catch. Mom had one, pup had one, I was told. When the Carey Street incident happened at the Deneen's old house, they were howling and there were tons of them running all over the place. One woman scooped her dog up and was afraid for her life. It's frightening. I mean, I park my car in a garage and have to walk to the house. Do I have to carry a blowhorn with me to come from my garage to the house? What if I come home after dark? I mean, it's a problem and it's getting worse. My neighbor across the street's dog, who's pretty big, was just knocked down by two of them. He was fine, but this guy was taking his dog for a walk. He just told me today, two coyotes knocked him over. I mean, it's a problem. It's becoming more aggressive and they're not afraid of people. I mean, when the animal control officer said, yeah, you blew the horn, they didn't go away. That means you need to walk towards them. Okay. So he's sicking human beings after the coyotes to scare them away.
The animal control officer, it's not really.
He absolutely told me that. You can call him and ask.
Yeah, that's what Mass Wildlife recommends as a way to show that you are superior to the animal, to scare the animal away. I wouldn't characterize it.
But the question is, if I'm not here, I have my parents. Are they not able to sit out in their side yard because of the coyotes? Oh, I also almost stepped in coyote scat the other day when I walked out the back door to go outside. Okay. My dog has to be on a leash. I don't have one, but I have to pick up after coyotes.
Okay.
This would seem to be a
have you spoken with Mass Wildlife or have you called a problem animal control officer, a PAC?
I called your animal control officer on Sunday because the police told me to.
So you as a private property owner, if you meet the threshold of a certain amount, Mass Wildlife will allow you to hire a PAC, a problem animal control officer, to potentially trap the animals or find a way to deal with the problem outside of the typical hunting or trapping season. If you meet that threshold, I think it sounds like you do.
How much property do you need?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
I actually think they live on my neighbors, but the property's combined. I mean, where they go, where I see them running, it's combined. And I mean, she can confirm that, yeah, they were howling and there were a ton of them. And her son, who's a musician, was worried if I had, what do you call them? Things in my ears, earplugs in.
Hey, Tony?
Yeah.
My name is Tom Costin. I happen to live right here. And the thing that bothers me right now is that you're talking as if you're defending this animal that we're talking about. We are looking to the town to take care of this situation because if a person is attacked or if a child is attacked, then it's too late. We're trying to tell you now that this is something that the town has to take care of and they should do it immediately.
Mr. Costin, we don't disagree with you. We've expressed that same sentiment to Mass Wildlife. All I'm doing is relaying the message that we're receiving back from them.
Well, what we have to do then is to make the message a little stronger through our representatives at the State House or elsewhere, but it has to be done. This is something that we as citizens in the state of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts desire and want, and they should take care of it.
Hey, Tony?
Yes.
This does seem to be a rather unique situation with 8 or 9 or 10 of these. Would this be classified obviously as a den? Would it make it any easier to do some trapping?
I think that I think Mass Wildlife needs to be consulted for that. We don't have the authority to allow for trapping based on a certain threshold, but they do.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Maybe we can make some contacts and see what we get, because this isn't just going to protect that piece of property. It's probably going to protect most of that area, and we're hearing complaints from that area.
This is that it's going to protect the whole town. It's not just this area, it's the whole town. If these animals get the idea that they can go anywhere, they're gonna go anywhere. And so we might as well take advantage of everything that we have available to us from the state on down.
I'm telling you, while you were talking about the housing incident, a coyote was in the middle of our yard howling. I opened the window. I wish I had been on speaker. It was standing in the middle of our rock garden, and they were howling on both sides of our yard. So like the Christie's side and the Bishop's side. Susan Casivio probably heard him across the street. I know she's been out on her porch. I mean, they're all over the neighborhood. I mean, everybody's afraid. It's frightening. I mean, we're afraid to go out. These people with little dogs, Mr. Jerry down the street. I mean, people are in danger. They can be knocked over. They can get concussions, break a leg. I mean, it's the coyotes should not have more rights than the tax-paying citizens of the town. It's nuts. And saying that this is what the wildlife protection people say is great, but in theory, it doesn't work for the town payers, the taxpayers, or the citizens of Nahant, which is the smallest town in Massachusetts. I think
we have to follow, we can't ignore state laws. And I think, Tom, you're absolutely right. We've reached out. I know that Tony has, I have, I think Gene and probably Josh have. We've reached out to our representatives. We've expressed to them what our concern is about the uniqueness of this town, and that we feel that it's being overpopulated. And perhaps the cure to this is legislation, but it's not the town can't pass a bylaw allowing us to do something the state is not allowing us to do. So I agree with you. I'll be the first one to walk a petition around, but you know, those types of things are out of our hands.
So who do we talk to? We've got Tom. He knows everybody. I mean, who do you want him to call? What do you want him to do?
They've already been contacted. We've talked our state senator, our state representative. That's where you start.
That would be to potentially change one of the legal impediments that I mentioned earlier. For the issue that you're dealing with in with the abutting property and in your backyard, I think Mass Wildlife, which, like I said, I've had a call with them almost every other day for the last 2 weeks. So I'll mention it to them as well. But if I can, maybe you could email me. My email is abarletta@nahant.org.
Okay.
And then I'll try to connect you with our contact at Mass Wildlife to find out what can be done now for your unique situation. What avenues are available. I think it might be trapping through the effort of a PAC. But Mass Wildlife has to give
Excuse me. It's not a unique situation. We're one home on this road, and these animals are going through every yard in the area. So don't put it down as a Tom Costin or any other one person. It's a problem for the town. So don't try to put it in one neighborhood. It's over the whole town.
There were I heard between 25 to 50 down at the old Deneen's property when the sirens went off for the unfortunate Carey Street incident. You know, a neighbor was walking her dog. She was petrified. They were howling and running all over the place. She scooped up her dog and ran home. I mean, she's in her 70s.
I understand.
You know, it's not just this house. They're everywhere.
Pamela, we hear it loud and clear.
Okay.
We recognize the issues. We recognize the problems. If there is something that we are not doing that you think we should be doing, please let me know.
I don't know what you should be doing, but I do know that I used to live in Connecticut, and people who lived near woods couldn't put their little kids out on a blanket because the coyotes would come out of the woods and grab them. So I'm told they won't touch humans. Well, they did.
I mean, I'm completely open to pursuing any avenue within our legal bounds that we can.
Well,
So, I mean, I
spend some time at the bench down the street and have a chat, or sit in the gazebo and have a coffee. I mean, I'm open to anything. I just think something needs to happen. I mean,
and I think that as Tom said, that has to happen at the state level.
well, it'll take 3 years. When will that happen?
Good question. Probably more than 3 years, if it ever happens at all.
Nice. I
You
mean,
know,
I
I
just
gotta
find
just
this way to
reiterate.
approach so frustrating.
I want to reiterate that we are on your side in this issue. We understand the concern and the frustration, and that we are trying to do everything, as Mark said, within our legal bound to do it.
You know, we used to have a beautiful rock garden. I'm afraid to go garden because that's where they come. And that's in the middle of the yard. And they're out there all the time.
Okay.
I mean, we shouldn't be
We
afraid
understand.
to go outside or in our house.
Okay.
You know, I blew the horn.
I'm not sure. I don't know. Every time I have a conversation about coyotes with a resident, I'm at a loss for words. There's nothing I can say that is going to solve the problem. There's nothing I can say that's going to solve the problem.
Right.
And we aren't already trying. And it's not our fault that we don't have other avenues that would potentially be a solution that would be acceptable to you. And every time I have this conversation, it seems like
no, but excuse me. It's better if it comes from the town rather than from an individual. If it comes, now just listen to me now. It's a town problem. It's a town problem, and so before someone loses a life over it, let the state or the people know exactly what we have here and tell them we need help.
We have.
Okay.
And we continue to do so.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Tom. We understand that it's not unique, totally unique to your area, but it is on that side of town for some reason or other. And Tony said he's going to begin to continue the efforts he's been making. And I spent an hour with him today talking about this very subject, and he's really involved in it. And I can't say I can see anything happening. As Mark says, this could take time, but for now, we'll try our best to get this going.
It's probably not often for someone in my position to be as open and honest as I'm trying to be here. It's extremely frustrating that we don't have an answer. And every time I have a conversation about this issue with a resident, it becomes this you're not doing enough conversation on the town. And we're doing everything within our legal bounds that we can. And I understand that that doesn't seem like enough, but it's not because we disagree. It's not because we don't care. It's not because we're not trying. So it's frustrating because, well, we're here to try to help. We're here to try to help. We are putting the pressure on our state delegation. We're explaining to them, the situation that we're hearing from the residents, and I'm relaying the information we get back. We haven't proposed to them any type of legislation because we don't know what that legislation would even look like. Certainly, you're never going to pass legislation that changes how many feet you have to be away from a structure when discharging a firearm. That will never change. You're not going to change the type of traps that you can use. That was outlawed by a referendum vote by the state in '96. So what is the legislative change that's going to provide us a way to solve this problem instead of just waiting for it to solve itself? I don't have that answer. We haven't heard that answer from anyone, but if we had it, you're hearing from the selectmen, we would push for it. So it's frustrating for you, it's frustrating for us. And I'm not defending the animal. I'm just relaying the message that we're hearing from the state. Next is Susan. I'm not gonna say your name, the last name right.
Casivio.
Casivio.
Yep. Hi, Susan Casivio, 65 Mayolis Road. I just wanted to mention the incident in Swampscott the other day where the man got bit. So they do attack people despite what the state may say. And I'm wondering, I've seen them chase down people down my street, elderly people walking dogs. I keep a baseball bat by my back door when I take my dogs out in my 6-foot stockaded fence backyard because I'm afraid, because I can see them across the street. As Pam said, there is a huge den of them over there. There's at least 9 of them. There's a mother, a father, and I've personally seen today, was watching the 4 babies play as people were walking along Marginal Way. And I could see people running in horror when they looked over the bushes and saw the 4 coyotes playing. And they were good size. They were probably 45 to 50 pound pups. I think that I've warned my neighbor that lives in back of us, who has a small child. They probably walk in a carriage. I mean, I look at people, I'm talking to people on my front porch all day long saying, you guys, there's coyotes right here. You need to be careful. You need to be careful. I have the air horns. I have the things. My other question is the state doing anything to measure the problem? Because we are the smallest town in the state, landmass wise. So are we measuring the population and how big it's actually getting? Because I can see just from my front porch, which is a very limited view of Nahant, that we've got a huge problem and it's gotten a lot worse. And I just ordered coyote vests for my 2 smallest dogs that we walk, because that are the ones with the spikes on them, because I know that I have read that the coyotes know how to go in and kill a small animal in one bite. And I think that we need to get our arms around how big the problem is, not just saying that we do have a problem, but is it getting bigger? Is it getting worse? Are we worse than any other town as far as, how many coyotes we have per our land mass? I mean, are we measuring that? Are we
So I'll
trying
try
to
to-
get our arms around that?
So I'll try to answer a couple of the questions that you said. And again, please keep in mind that this is based on conversations I've had with Mass Wildlife. The issue, the incident you mentioned in Swampscott, we reached out to Swampscott Police Department and the town of Swampscott to find out, what happened there and what's the response to it. They may seek an avenue to try to capture the coyote in that area. It'll be very difficult for them to identify if they capture a coyote at all in that area, if it was the one that bit that human being. But they do not have, that incident doesn't allow them to go and try to capture multiple coyotes or all of the coyotes. So even then, even in that situation, the response, doesn't get to what I think Nahant residents are looking for. So that's one comment on that. The other is, when speaking with Mass Wildlife, it's not based on population. Their approach or expertise is all predicated on the fact that coyotes regulate the population themselves. That if there isn't a mate, if there isn't a food source, they will leave and find one or seek one or two or both. And that they're very territorial, so they don't allow other coyotes to create a den in proximity to theirs. So according to Mass Wildlife, based on that idea or that concept, the population isn't really a tool, like measuring the population isn't really a tool that would trigger any sort of action, because in theory, they are going to regulate themselves. Again, that's what I get from Mass Wildlife. But as far as any incident that gets, called into the police department or gets transferred to, eventually makes its way to our animal control officer, it then gets reported to Mass Wildlife. And they do keep track. All right, Francine.
Hi, thanks for letting me speak. So I post information very frequently on the Nahant residents page, trying to provide information for people about coyotes and how to coexist with them, and facts and things that are from Mass Wildlife based on science. And the thing that happens repeatedly is people, I don't think they read the information, because people end up, coyotes don't attack people. I spoke with someone today about the incident in Swampscott, and what is suspect, and I'm going to put this on the table, nothing is definitive, but let me put this out there, what I found out today. They suspect that that coyote was looking for food. Someone is feeding them. So this coyote was trying to get the person's attention, expecting it was going to get food. The other piece of information I got was that there was suspicion that it's not even a coyote bite that this person sustained. I think what happens is there's so much hysteria, and excuse, I'm sorry if I'm putting people off by using the word hysteria, but if you read the information and you educate yourself about the animals, you don't need to be afraid of them. They're not going to grab a child. Not about 70% of their diet is rodents. So right now our rabbits are all over the place in Nahant. The coyotes are going to put that in check. They'll also take care of our rats. They are a keystone species. They're essential to creating balance. Wolves don't attack and eat people. Completely off from what we've all been taught. That is not true. So it really comes down to education. The other thing people need to know is the attrition rate with pups is something like 70%. So most of the pups that are born are not going to survive because they're subjected to the same diseases that dogs are, like distemper, getting hit by cars. So that's another thing. So you don't have to worry about we're going to be overpopulated because, as Tony has said numerous times, they self-regulate just like wolves do. And the reason we've got the coyotes is because we wiped out the wolves, 100 years ago? And then the other thing I want to say about, we're talking about trapping. So Tony, as you've explained, there's a dominant pair, and those are the ones that reproduce. If you take out one of the dominant pair, what happens is it messes up the whole balance of the pack that just basically stays intact and does what they're supposed to do and creates a balance. So if you screw up the dominant pack, it's like with wolves, it's like leaving teenagers without parents, and then they get into trouble, they go off, they start reproducing, and we'll end up with an imbalance. And that's where we'll have more problems. So if the people on Mayolis are trapping coyotes, it's going to affect all of us because it's going to mess up the balance that is working itself out. The best thing we can do is coexist with them smartly. Cats need to be indoor pets, not only because of coyotes, but because of songbird populations. And dogs need to be on leashes. I seriously question if a dog is on a leash, a coyote is not going to go after it because they can run 30 miles an hour. They can't run and grab a dog on a leash. They are not stupid. So I honestly, I doubt that any of those dogs, little dogs that were grabbed, were actually on leashes. I don't believe it because it wouldn't happen. So we have to be really smart. We have to educate ourselves, and we have an opportunity to coexist. I mean, the coyotes are here to stay. They are not going away. They're in every community in Massachusetts. And if you try to remove them, as Tony said, another pack is just going to find its way here. The best thing we can do is exist with the pack that is already getting to know that knows our community. They'll take care of a bunch of things, and we just have to be smart and be compassionate. These are terrific animals. There's so many benefits, and we're not going to get rid of them. They're going to be here, so we need to coexist. Okay, I'll stop at that. Thank you.
Quick question for you, if I could, you can educate me. Why didn't we have this problem in the past, years ago?
Because as I understand it, and I don't claim to be a coyote expert, but I did arrange for Project Coyote, a person from there, the same person that the library had, John Margaranis, at the Art Nature event. I had him there giving demonstrations on how to haze a coyote to educate people. Everyone who came by said, I'm okay with the coyotes. Yep, I'm learning to coexist. I came away that day thinking, wow, we've really progressed as a community. So I believe the reason that the coyote population has gotten to where it is, it's because we've wiped out wolves. Wolves were the keystone species. Like if you go to Yellowstone, the coyotes stay in check because the wolves are the ones who are in control. The wolves are gone. So now that's allowed the coyotes to move more into the apex predator position. Apex predators are keystone. They're phenomenal, just like white sharks are. Great whites are. We need those. They keep the balance of so much else. So we have to educate ourselves and be smart about this.
Thank you. Tony, any further questions?
If there is anyone else that wants to raise their hand.
Okay. So we'll pass on preserving East Point, I take it, because we'll be going into executive session on that shortly. Unless you have something you want to contribute.
I have nothing.
Anybody?
No.
I don't have anything.
Okay, town administrators report. I think we just had it.
Well, at the last Board of Selectmen meeting, the MBTA Better Bus Project was brought to our attention by a resident as an item of concern. I just wanted to report that I've reached out to the MBTA to ask for them to clarify and clearly articulate what the changes are going to be for our community, and urge them that they do that for all communities. Currently, the only way to do that is to go onto the website and interact. Like, there's an interactive map. You have to select a schedule, and it'll show you what the current route is versus the proposed, but it's not overly simple to understand. So I've asked them to send that information to us. I pass along the comments that the resident provided to us, and I let them know that we would be providing formal comment once we get the information from them. So that's my update on an MBTA Better Bus project. National Grid work on Castle Road. So National Grid has more or less completed their work from Nahant Road to Flash Road. The phase 2 of their project goes from Flash Road to Gardner. That project will begin probably in the next couple of weeks after school is out, and will go until September, I believe. The that area of town, curbside collection for trash occurs on Thursday mornings. On Thursdays. We've asked National Grid if they would delay work until 8:30 in the morning, so delay road closure and mobilization of equipment until 8:30. So during that time, curbside collection can get in there to the community, to that neighborhood, before the interruption caused by the National Grid work. So for anybody in that area, we will put on the website, we'll do a robocall, we'll continue to get the information out. You're going to want to get your trash to the curb before 8:30 in the morning so that it can be collected by Waste Management.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the selectmen?
I have none.
Anything to add to the meeting before we go to citizens forum? I'd just like to ask one question, and that would be, given the national threat that the schools are facing with this gun violence, do we have any feedback or measures we can ask for from the Johnson School administration, just as to what they're doing or what they've done or what they have in place? Locked doors, alerts, et cetera, just something like that. Maybe I'm going down the wrong road here, but I just think I'd like to know, and we might all like to know, that the kids are safe.
Yes, the Johnson School does practice locked doors. We have routine drive-by and check by Nahant Police Department. We have an integrated camera system from the Johnson School to the internal camera system to the police department. And our police department works directly with the teachers at the Johnson School on active shooter training. So it's very much at the forefront of their attention.
Excellent, that's great. Okay, we at this point have citizens forum. Do we have anybody out there?
Yes. Michelle?
Hey, good evening. Thank you. So thanks, Tony. It was nice to hear that you had followed up with the MBTA on the bus redesign project. I just wanted to follow up from that note that I had sent. So I attended the public hearing for the North Shore last Wednesday, where the MBTA went through in detail by community that's going to be affected in the North Shore, what the bus route changes were going to be. They tended to glaze over some communities like Nahant and Danvers and Wenham. And most notably, the town of Wenham has no bus service. The MBTA eliminated it 2 years ago, and Danvers has been significantly reduced. Their elected and appointed representatives were on the meeting and strongly conveyed the need to bring back that bus service for those locations. In addition, the town of Winthrop was also represented, and they're having significantly challenges as well. So I think Nahant's not alone. I think also with the upcoming plans for affordable housing that the town needs to work on and the changes in the economy, I think this is really something we need to ensure that we don't lose our position on. Certainly, we don't want to be negatively impacted. We understand, like anything else, is also the cost benefit analysis regarding these types of projects and decisions. But I think that the fabric of the community is going to change over time. And, not everybody is going to be driving into the city. And so they're going to be more economical, and hoping that we can, convey that back to the MBTA.
Definitely. I also, thank you, Michelle. I forgot to mention, I spoke with Representative Capano's office about it as well. And they are going to echo our comments, your comments to the MBTA, and had already reached out to one of the deputy commissioners over there, which is the contact that I got and emailed. So I think it's being heard so far. So we'll continue to keep the pressure on it.
All right, I appreciate it. The one thing I'd say in closing is there's still going to be more public hearings through the rest of the summer. So, I would encourage the Board of Selectmen or yourselves to check in on one of those meetings to hear. Most importantly, credit to the MBTA. They're doing a nice job of trying to present the information and have data available to the public. They did a really good job in the meeting that I attended to have small breakout sessions via Zoom. So residents could share feedback and comments directly to the project team. And they were very thoughtful in making sure they tried to capture this information and then go back, based on the discussion that was going on. So continually share that and, appreciate, the support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yep. Kay Alice.
Hello.
Hello.
State your name and address for the record.
Yep. I'm Carrie Alice Collins of 22 Breezy Hill Terrace. And I was in contact with you, Tony, about repainting the Flash Road playground shed. And I'd just like to give you all an update on that. Heather Goodwin and I received a generous donation from Sarah Amancio and family of Nahant for the paint. And we've been in touch with Sue, Jen, and Kelly at the rec committee. And we will be starting work soon, if that's okay with everyone here. Heather Goodwin and family will be helping. And if anybody remembers what was on it before, the rainbow will be back. We painted a really beautiful rainbow that you could see all the way from Kelly Green's and made a lot of people happy, and that'll be part of the piece again. We got a lot of good work going on with the tennis courts and the market going on, and we're really excited to show our art off to the community and very happy to have the opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
We
that's great.
appreciate it.
That's great. Thank you. And I don't know if you heard in the beginning of the meeting, but on Friday at noon, we're going to do a ribbon cutting to officially open the basketball and tennis courts.
I think that's awesome. As an old townie, I used to play on those in the 70s and 80s, and happy to see him back. And I also just want to say a couple other things since I have you guys. I just want to say I'm going to miss Marty also. He was one of a kind and always friendly to me and my sister, and just he was a good soul. And also just another one thing, I vote for hybrids for meetings. I think that public can stay informed that way, and it's very important for us to be heard also. So thank you.
All right, thank you.
All righty, guys. Great meeting. It was a tough one to get through, but I did. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
How are we looking, Tony?
Let's see, in the comments. There was a question in the comments about use of a bow and arrow. I answered that one, that it is same as discharging a firearm. It is not allowed in the town of Nahant. Is there a Pamela on the call that wants to unmute and I don't know if they were raising their hand through the chat.
We have Pamela Duncan. She already spoke with Tom Costa and Nicole.
Oh, okay. So, all right. So that might be behind schedule. B. Rogers had said that. B, are you still on? You can unmute if you are. B's comment in the chat was that she had tuned in for an update on East Point, being that it was on the agenda, and suggested that it not be on the agenda if it's not going to be discussed. And that's it in the chat. If anybody else is on the call that wants to unmute themselves, you can go ahead and do so now.
Okay, hearing none. Hey, Josh, you want to take us into the executive session?
Sure.
I'll do that, John. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to adjourn to executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation, Northeastern University Marine Science Center, 430 Nahant Road, Nahant. If the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body.
Seconded.
So
Not to
Chairman, do you
return to open session?
do you declare? Is that what you were saying?
Pardon?
It says that the chairman declares. Just say
Yes.
I do declare.
I do, sir.
If I didn't say it, Dan was about to say it.
Okay, roll call vote.
Josh Hedrum, aye.
Mark Cullen, aye.
Gene Canty, aye. Thank you all and have a great night.
All right, give me a second to set us up here.